Hot Viltrumite on Viltrumite action! That's what I'm talking about. Finally, more of the action that we know and love, less of the moping and crying. This ain't the CW, ladies. However, this uptick in goodness could just be bait for the mid-season finale. Gotta give us what we want to make sure we come back in, February? Episode 4 flashes back to the battle between Omni-Man and Invincible, focusing more on Omni-Man's reaction to Mark saying "Dad" and his internal struggle between his duties as a Viltrumite and his feelings as a father. Shooting off into space, he sheds the remnants of his past life, and it's here. This scene again uses some nice music. At first I thought it was Nick Cave, so I googled it. Turns out it's Leonard Cohen, but I thought I'd better search for Nick Cave and I found a version he did on YouTube, but it was nowhere like it, so I was wrong. But then... Hark! What's this I see? A version by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
That's the spice.
Omni-Man wanders the galaxy in a haze. Some odd character models in this scene. Doesn't he appear to be hanging his legs down too low? Oh, he's weary, you say. He's given up. Yeah, okay, but there's no gravitational force pulling him down. But does he got that bootay? He do! Seemingly, he decides that he'll end it all by entering a black hole. I love this shot of him staring blankly into the center of oblivion. I'd say 20% of the episode's budget went into making these shots, and they paid off. Chef's kiss. Spotting a distressed ship, Omni-Man breaks from his malaise and rescues the stricken vessel. I'm not gonna lie, I felt something here. Maybe it's the music. Maybe it's the voiceless Thraxans panicking in their attempt to escape the gravity well. Good stuff. Setting them gently on their home planet, Omni-Man looks done. I can feel that 1,000-mile stare. The unfocused gaze of someone who is beyond caring. That's how I looked during the last 2 episodes watching all the soap opera level drama. Sure, maybe my features don't look like they were carved out of granite, but it's more about the vibe of the thing. And Marbo. Look it up. I've had an issue lately with my surround sound where, after an Nvidia driver update, the center channel doesn't work. So I watch these cartoons and I think, man, they're really going with this artistic vision, just music and sound effects. And then 10 minutes in I realise, nope, it's just my speakers are not working. Thank God for the intro to this episode having voices, because when the Thraxan tells Omni-Man to wait, I realise that yes, my speakers are still working. I noticed that there is one of the 4 Thraxans on the ship who has a more embellished uniform, the smaller of the 4. Could this be an important character later on? Cut back to present day and we're back where we left off last episode. Stephen Yeun's voice work in this scene is great, but J.K. Simmons seems to have done it in one take, in a phone booth. Remember them? He's so lifeless. Must have been a bad day for old Jonathan Kimball. He's normally so good, and I had to look up how to pronounce Yeun. From the man himself, it's just like Y-U-N, Yeun. Omni-Man is now king of the Thraxans. In the comics, he became the king due to being the oldest of all the citizens. That's how their society works. In this show, he's just king. When Mark told Omni-Man to take a long walk off a short pier, I thought Omni-Man was chasing him to beat some sense into him. Mark decides to give Omni-Man 5 minutes, but only for the sake of the Thraxans. Now, time for some hot man-on-bug tonsil hockey action. Does it count as being a furry if they don't have fur? Would they be a carapace? Anyway, whatever they are, Omni-Man is one of them. He's gone and knocked up one of them bug women he has. Every day we stray further from God. His wife's name is Andressa. I guess if she's a bug, he can really treat her like a pet. She's even got a fancy collar. It has to be the young bug from the beginning rescue scene. My brain is going, I know this voice. Rhea Seahorn? Who? So Nolan introduces Mark to his little brother, who looks more like Violet Beauregard.
Violet, you're turning violet, Violet!
What are you talking about?
Smash cut to the title card on the 12th F-bomb of the episode. They're losing their touch. Olympus Blight Blondshell. There, I saved you a Google. Debbie Downer is still walking the streets in a daze. Seems to be the theme of the episode. She's completely shoeless in a major American metropolis. Brave lady, I'm not sure if I'd be more concerned about the used needles or the human excrement. Maybe she just wants to get some waffle stomp practice in. Don't Google that one. Don't know if you've ever walked any real distance barefoot, but after a mile, your feet have had it. Going any further is a real ordeal. Don't try it. She ends up at Nolan's grave and questions their whole relationship. Not a bad scene. At least she's asking questions that are interesting and believable. I'd probably say the same things if I found out my wife wasn't who she says she is. The Mauler twin, the Mauler single, are you still a twin if one dies? Anyway, that guy with the melted flesh, he's created a clone. But now they know who the original is, because the clone isn't burnt up. Donald's seeking out Debbie for answers about why she recoiled when she saw him. But she's not home, so he checks the crater where the house stood that he was surveilling the Grayson household from within. He just happens to immediately spot an old mangled pair of sunglasses in the earth that looks like his. How convenient. Unless he has super robo-vision, maybe it's like the crappy RoboCop remake, where the hardware makes the flesh think it's requesting all the movements, but the human is really just along for the ride. For once, I agree with Amber. William should really be attending classes. He's paying for them. I had friends who would skip if they didn't have to be there. I never understood it. Here we get the thrilling setup for the next episode's climactic brunch scene. At least Eve is showing signs of distress from her failed superhero antics. At least this show has the decency to put realistic modern women in as background characters. That looks more like the women who were at my university. We also get a reminder that the gay guy is a sexual deviant with his whole going commando line. Can't they just have him be into Dungeons and Dragons or something? He's falling into all the cliches. Has his side of the dorm set up like he hired an interior decorator. Second thing they do is set up rules for if he's up to his nuts and guts. Now he's one thin layer of denim away from exposing his chocolate starfish. Couldn't Adam Eve just magic up some food? Can she recreate anything? Like if there was a certain thin stew made of fish, vegetables, prawns, coconut milk, and 4 kinds of rice, could she manage to get the spices right? Amber says, "Your treehouse is like miles away. Isn't it in Africa somewhere?" I guess it is miles away. The American education system, ladies and gentlemen. I kid. Omni-Man is trying to convince Mark to give 2 hoots about his new brother, by trying to guilt him into protecting his new sibling from the Viltrumites, who will exterminate him due to not being of pure blood. Mark tells Omni-Man to go fornicate with himself, in probably the most realistic FU I've heard in years. Just from the bottom of his heart. Great voice work, Stephen. Just as Mark's thinking about helping, the Viltrumites start crash landing into planet Thraxa. Here they deviate from the comics again with another gender swap. Why not chuck a female Viltrumite in there? Am I allowed to use the term female? Is another species considered a woman? I noticed none of the Thraxans use their shape-shifting ability. Was that a one-off? Adam Eve is staying back at the Teen Titans HQ in the Golden Gate Bridge. She just happens to be there when Kill Cannon decides to break in to steal one of Robot's sausage MacGuffins. They let the children choose their names once they come of age, which is like months if they only live 1 year. Do they get to pick their genders too? Andressa says that by the time she found out about Mark and his mother, she was already, what's the phrase? Head over heels? I thought the phrase was going to be knocked up. Lucan's voice is so weird, like the actor has a loogie in his throat.
It's true. The great Nolan fathered a child with an Earth woman.
Pretty good fight between Omni-Man and Lucan, with one exception. If the karate chop is always a decisive move, why not use it all the time? Adam Eve and Kill Cannon are battling it out on the bridge, and Eve's quipping like she's in a remake of Commando. Her hubris gets the better of her as she allows Kill Cannon to send a couple's car off the bridge. She retrieves their bodies, but it's too late. She let them die. You galoot! Mark Hamill drops by to tell Debbie that she's the reason that humanity is not enslaved by the Viltrumites. Maybe now she'll stop being such a sad sack. Donald's still sus about whether he's a clone or something. He knows Cecil's password. Shouldn't they have the ability to track this kind of thing? 2-factor authentication? I have stronger security on my Diablo account. He sees that he was blowed up by a self-destruct device in their surveillance house. He's shook. Mark and Nolan are witnessing the deaths of the Thraxans, and Nolan tells Mark that he shouldn't care about them. But why does he? Mark hits him with a zinger. You should have felt this way about Earth. Nolan hears Vidor speaking from behind and gives a pretty meme-worthy face. Like that face you make when you try to sneak a fart just as someone enters the room. I gotta say, Thula has a pretty smoking body. 11 out of 10. Would. I do feel that a ponytail knife thing is a bad idea. You have to keep track of it all the time. Omni-Man has to convince Mark to unleash 100% of his strength to kill these Viltrumites. If he doesn't, everyone on the planet is dead. Mark then becomes like Neo after believing he is the one. Just as Neo is an anagram of one, Mark becomes an anagram of Cram, and Cram stools his head where the sun don't shine. Even used her stupid ponytail as a trebuchet to launch her across the battlefield. We get a pretty sweet slideshow of stills from the battle until Omni-Man caves Vidor's head in, and Invincible has Thula by her stupid ponytail but hesitates in delivering the killing blow. He who hesitates is lost, and Thula uses the knife that we all knew was there and guts Mark like a fish. What an imbecile! Her ponytail becomes her undoing as Omni-Man uses it to give her the old do-si-do treatment and force feeds her an elbow sandwich. That's 2 steps up from a knuckle sandwich, right after a wrist sandwich. Either way, woman, sandwich, based. Lucan comes off the top rope and delivers a bone-crumbling flying kick to the spine of Omni-Man and tells him next time he kills someone to make sure it's done. An important lesson for Mark. He then collapses, cradling his guts like me after Christmas dinner. Debbie tells Cecil that they don't want Nolan's book money anymore. That it's like a gilded cage. It's nice, but it's still a cage. She must have quads of steel the way she gets up off that couch. Damn! I don't remember the significance of the baseball mitt. Can someone fill me in? The only thing I remember is Omni-Man being disinterested in Mark until they encouraged him to run home when playing a junior game. Also, didn't they throw the ball in the backyard at some point? I don't know, but they linger on it here, so it must have some major significance. The Viltrumites have arrived on Thraxa and are treating the wounds of the fallen combatants. Omni-Man tells Mark to read his books. Knowledge is power. France is bacon. I Am Yesterday, Zoe Bookbinder. Saved you another Google. Adam Eve goes home. She's come to the realization that maybe her dad isn't just some fat idiot, but someone who's actually had experiences and learned from his mistakes. Sounds familiar, actually. Donald stabs himself in the wrist and is relieved to see blood, but oh, the tip of the knife is bent. He has an adamantium skeleton? General Craig is here. Wait, General Krieg? Like German for war? That's a bit on the nose. I always thought it rhymed with egg, but I guess it's spelled how Yanks say Craig. Still looks like a white Sinestro. They do give him the 1970s cartoon treatment with the old still image with a flapping mouth. I guess they had to save some money somewhere after all the excellent fight sequences. Anyway, Omni-Man will be executed for failing in his duties. His mission falls to Mark. Mark has to convince Earth to give in. He can kill a few to convince them, or the Viltrumites will kill millions. He will be checked in on soon. In the comics, he had a century. I guess when you live for thousands of years, a century would be soon. King Mauler is killed by his clone. So now we can save on animating a detailed burnt Mauler. Run the jewels, the ground below. Saved you another Google. You owe me at least a thumbs up, if not a subscription. All I heard was urethra. Anyway, we're back and firing on all cylinders. I hope the people who like the smooching aren't too upset with this episode, as it was a solid 9. I could have gone higher, except for the fact they're pulling this split season garbage. The Walking Dead did this, and it really kills the momentum. I'm also worried that they had to cram all the good stuff into this episode to sell the cliffhanger ending. The midway ending. So dumb. The bits with Debbie and Adam Eve actually felt like they had purpose. They felt like they were developing as characters, not just moping while treading water. And their actions felt believable. The fight scenes were wicked. I never once stopped to check the time or to read messages. I loved how dynamic they were. Quote-unquote camera movement flying all over the shop. Fists flying, knives flashing, high-stakes combat. I loved it. More, please. The voice work by Stephen Yeun was great. Surely awards territory. You'd never even know it was Glenn from The Walking Dead. There, I mentioned it again. Didn't Robert Kirkman write both? Yep, he sure did. J.K. Simmons needs to lift his game. Some of his delivery was so bland and uninterested. That's probably on the directors though. Take a leaf out of George Lucas's book. Faster and more intense, thanks JK. I'm looking forward to a bit of a musical change in future episodes. Less mopey female voice with acoustic guitar. Maybe some rock. How about Queen? I'd love to get some Freddie Mercury up in this bitch. I'm winking, but you can't see it, so just trust me when I say I'm winking. Anyway, I'm all out of things to review until 2024, so drop a comment with something I should review. Surely there's something out there that's as worthy as Invincible and Robin Hood. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. I release reviews occasionally when time allows, and a thumbs up would be a big motivator for further reviews. If you didn't like it, feel free to leave a thumbs down and let me know how I can improve in the comments below. Anyway, I'm Mixie, thanks for your time, and have a good one.